A car is not just a way to get from A to B. It is a big chunk of your money sat on four wheels. And some cars take that money and quietly set fire to it. Today, we are counting down 10 British cars that look tempting on the forecourt and then drain your bank account faster than a leaking petrol tank. These are the motors that promise you class and leave you stranded on the hard shoulder. Grab a brew, because this list gets painful. Number 10, Jaguar S-Type, 1999 to 2008. The retro car that aged badly. In the late 90s, Jaguar looked back at its glory days and decided the answer was nostalgia. So it built the S-Type, a saloon styled to remind you of the lovely Mark II from the 60s. That rounded face, those big headlamps. On paper, it sounded clever. In real life, it looked like a melted impression of a proper Jaguar. Here is the part the badge did not tell you. Underneath, this car sat on a Ford platform shared with the American Lincoln LS. So you were paying Jaguar money for a body wrapped around shared Ford parts. The early cars in particular were rough. Electrical faults, dashboard warnings that came and went with no logic, and build quality that felt thrown together rather than crafted. It was heavy too, so the smaller V6 always felt like it was dragging an anchor. And when something expensive went wrong, and it usually did, you got Jaguar repair bills with none of the Jaguar magic to make you forgive it. The real killer here is the money. These cars dropped through the floor. A saloon that cost serious cash when new now sells for the price of a weekend away. People see that low price and think they are buying a bargain luxury Jag. What they are really buying is a long list of jobs and a fuel gauge that moves like the seconds hand on a clock. The S-Type is proof that slapping a famous old shape on a parts bin car fools nobody for long. Number 9, Range Rover Evoque Convertible, 2016 onwards. The SUV that could not decide what it was. Somebody at Land Rover looked at the popular Evoque and asked a question nobody else was asking. What if we chopped the roof off a small luxury SUV? The result was the Evoque Convertible, and it is a brilliant example of a clever brand getting carried away. This thing tried to be three cars at once. A go-anywhere off-roader, a posh status symbol, a sunny day cruiser. It managed to be none of them properly. Cutting the roof off an SUV weakens the whole body, so it never felt as solid or as planned as the normal version. Drop the soft top and the boot shrinks to almost nothing, so you cannot even use it for the family run it was supposedly built for. Buyers agreed with their wallets. The 5-door Evoque did almost all the work, while the convertible and coupe between them barely scraped a tiny slice of sales. When a giant company pulls a model that fast, that is the market telling you it was a mistake. Now think about owning one used. You get all the well-known Land Rover worries, the electronics and the running costs, plus a folding roof to go wrong. You pay for the open-top novelty. You enjoy it for about 3 sunny days a year in Britain, and you spend the other 362 days regretting it. There is a reason you do not see many of these around. The ones who bought new took the depreciation hit. Do not volunteer to take it from them. Number 8. Jaguar X-Type, 2001 to 2009. The Mondeo in a posh suit. This is the one the petrol heads love to laugh at, and there is a good reason. The X-Type was meant to be a small, affordable Jaguar to take on the BMW 3 Series and the Mercedes C-Class. Lovely idea. The problem is what it was built on. Under that Jaguar grille sat a heavily reworked Ford Mondeo platform, built at the Halewood plant. Now, Jaguar will tell you the X-Type had its own tuning and its own feel. And that is partly fair, but you cannot escape the truth that a lot of the bones, the switches, and the running gear came straight from a family Ford that cost half as much. They sold over 350,000 of them, so plenty are still about. That is exactly the trap. The early cars, roughly 2001 to 2006, are the ones with the shakiest build quality. Electrical gremlins, cooling system weak spots, and interior trim that wears and rattles. None of that would matter much on a cheap Ford. On a Jaguar, it stings because the badge raises the repair prices while the shared parts remind you it is not really special inside. And the depreciation is brutal. This was a car that lost a fortune the moment it left the showroom and then kept sliding until it landed in banger money. So people buy a tatty one for almost nothing, feel very clever driving a Jaguar, then discover that almost nothing was still too much. The X-Type is the car that proves a famous badge cannot hide what is underneath forever. Quick favor, if this trip through Britain's worst buys is making you laugh, smash that like button and drop a comment telling me which of these you have actually seen rotting on a driveway near you. And hit subscribe, because we have a whole garage of automotive disasters still to get through. Right, back to the countdown. Number 7, Reliant Robin, 1973 to 2001. The plastic pig on 3 wheels. You knew this was coming. The Reliant Robin is the most British bad car ever made, and it is famous for one very obvious reason. It has 3 wheels, 1 at the front, 2 at the back, and a reputation for going over in a corner that has launched 1,000 jokes. Let us be fair about that tipping thing for a second. Driven sensibly, a Robin stays upright, but take a roundabout with any enthusiasm, and the single front wheel makes the whole car feel like it wants to lie down. That is the legend, and the legend is half the problem with owning one. Under the bonnet, you get a tiny 850 cubic centimeters engine making about 40 horsepower, wrapped in a fiberglass body that does not rust but cracks if you look at it wrong. It tips the scales at under 450 kilograms, which is why for years you could drive one on a motorcycle license and pay less tax. That was the whole clever idea. Cheap to run, cheap to tax, light on fuel at around 70 miles to the gallon. The trouble is everything else. Performance that makes a milk float look racy. A motorway feels like a near-death experience. Crash protection that is basically a thin plastic shell and some hope. And because it became a national joke, you cannot drive one without the whole street pointing. People buy these thinking they are quirky and cheap and a bit of fun. Some are. But anyone buying a Robin as serious daily transport in modern traffic has made a brave and slightly daft decision. There is charm here, sure. There is also a wobble that never goes away. Number 6, Rover 75 from 1998 to 2005. The good car its own company killed. Here is a sad one because the Rover 75 was not actually a bad car to drive. It was comfortable, it looked classy in a retro British way, and it came from the years when BMW owned Rover and put real engineering into it. So, why is it on this list? Because of what happened to the company that built it. In April 2005, MG Rover collapsed. The famous Longbridge factory went quiet, the dealer network vanished, and a whole brand died almost overnight. The moment that happened, every 75 on the road became an orphan. No mother company, no proper dealer support, a parts supply that suddenly got complicated and uncertain. That is the trap with buying one now. You see a smart, cheap, comfy executive saloon and think you have found a hidden gem. Then a part fails. Some bits are easy. Others send you hunting through specialists and forums for something a normal car would have in stock. The petrol versions also used engines from the same K-Series family that gave Rovers their head gasket reputation, so a poorly looked after example can cook itself. So you have a genuinely nice car saddled with the ghost of a dead company. Low purchase price, real charm, and a long shadow of risk hanging over every repair. The 75 is the heartbreak buy on this list. Lovely to sit in, risky to rely on. A reminder that a car is only as safe a bet as the company standing behind it, and this one has nobody standing behind it at all. Number 5, Aston Martin Cygnet 2011 to 2013. The most expensive Toyota ever sold. This one is almost too silly to be real. Aston Martin, maker of James Bond cars, decided to sell a tiny city car. Why? Because new European rules were squeezing brands on their average emissions, and Aston needed a clean little runabout to balance out all those thirsty V8 monsters. So they did something incredible. They took a Toyota IQ, a cheerful little city car, and turned it into an Aston. And by turned into, I mean they bolted on a fancy grille, retrimmed the inside in leather, and stuck the famous Wings badge on the front. That is mostly it. Underneath it stayed pure Toyota, same 1.3 3-liter engine, same modest 97-odd horsepower, same gearbox, the same little car a normal buyer could get for about 9,500 pounds. Now here is the punchline. The Cygnet launched at 30,995 pounds. Around 3 times the price of the Toyota it was based on. 30,000 pounds for a city car with under 100 horsepower and an Aston badge. Buyers were not fooled, sales were tiny, and Aston quietly dropped it after about 2 years. Today, it is a curiosity that collectors chase precisely because it was such a strange flop. But imagine being the person who paid full whack when it was new. You spent supercar deposit money to get the exact driving experience of a budget Japanese runabout, just with a posher dashboard. The Cygnet is what happens when a luxury brand asks you to pay for a badge and assumes you will not notice the cheap car attached to it. Still with me? Good. Same deal as before. Hit like, tell me in the comments which of these you would never touch with someone else's money, and subscribe so the next batch of motoring nightmares lands on your feed. Now, the top 4, where things get really expensive. Number 4. Land Rover Discovery 3, 2004 to 2009. The money pit with a posh ride. When it is working, the Discovery 3 is genuinely brilliant. 7 seats, proper off-road ability, and a smooth, floating ride thanks to its clever air suspension. That last word, air, is exactly where the wallet pain begins. That air suspension is the heart of this car, and one of its biggest weak spots. Over time, the air springs leak, the compressor that pumps them up gets tired, and the height sensors throw a wobbly. When it goes wrong, the car can sag onto its bump stops or refuse to lift, and you get warning messages telling you the suspension is inactive. Fixing it properly means specialist tools, specialist knowledge, and specialist bills. Then there is the electrical side, which owners darkly call the Christmas tree. One small fault in a shared sensor can light up the whole dashboard at once, knocking out several systems because everything talks to everything else. Tracking down the one true cause needs a proper diagnostic scan, and the hours add up fast. On top of all that, it drinks fuel like it has a hole in the tank, and parts cost more because this was an expensive vehicle when new. So the pattern goes like this. You buy a tidy-looking Disco 3 for tempting money. It feels like a steal. Then the air suspension sighs, the dashboard lights up like a fruit machine, and the repair quotes start landing. People buy these dreaming of family adventures. Plenty end up on the back of a recovery truck instead. Buy one with your eyes open and a fat repair fund, or do not buy one at all. Number 3. Land Rover Freelander 1 from 1997 to 2006. The little off-roader that eats itself. The first Freelander was Land Rover's attempt at a smaller, cheaper, friendlier 4x4 for the school run and the supermarket. Loads sold. Loads are still floating about for pocket money prices, and that cheap price is the bait on a very nasty hook. Start with the engine in the 1.8-liter petrol versions. It used a K-series engine that came from the factory with a single-layer head gasket, and that gasket has a habit of failing, often somewhere around 70,000 miles. Once it goes, it can cook the engine, and a proper repair with an uprated gasket is not cheap. Now the really cruel bit, which catches out almost everyone. This car drives all 4 wheels all the time through a part called the viscous coupling, plus a transfer box known as the IRD, and a rear differential. That coupling has a life of roughly 70,000 miles, but the service book never told owners to change it. So people just drive on. When that part wears out, it puts huge strain on the rest of the drivetrain and can chew through the transfer box and diff. Suddenly, you are looking at a repair bill worth more than the whole car. Some owners get so fed up they simply remove the prop shaft and turn it into a front-wheel drive car, killing the off-road ability the badge promised in the first place. That tells you everything. A 4x4, where the cheapest fix is to switch off the 4x4 bit. People buy these as a cheap, rugged runaround. What they get is a clock ticking under the floor. Cheap to buy, eye-watering to keep alive. Number 2. MG ZR and Rover 25, late 90s to 2005, the cheap car that was cheap for a reason. These two are basically the same little hatchback wearing different clothes. The Rover 25 played the sensible everyday card. The MG ZR put on body kit and a sporty face for younger drivers. For years, they were absolutely everywhere, on driveways, outside colleges, in learner driver fleets. Not because they were great, but because they were dirt cheap. The same K-series head gasket worry that haunts so many Rovers of this era lives here too. Run one hot or skip the coolant checks and you risk that gasket letting go, which on a car worth this little can be a death sentence. Add in tired electrics, worn interiors that felt budget even when new, and the usual creaks and rattles of a car built down to a price. Then came 2005 and the MG Rover collapse, the same event that orphaned the 75. So now these little cars carry the same problem, a dead parent company and a patchy parts and support picture. The difference is the 75 at least had charm and comfort to make the gamble feel worth it. The 25 and the ZR were always the budget option, so there is far less reward to balance the risk. Today they change hands for the price of a decent phone, sometimes less. People buy them as a first car or a cheap banger to get through a tough month. And honestly, a well-looked-after one with proof that the gasket has been sorted can just about justify itself. But buy a neglected one and you have spent banger money on a car that can turn into scrap with one overheated journey. It is the definition of a false economy on wheels. Number 1. Range Rover L3 22, 2001 to 2012. The king of the money pit. Here it is, the big one, the full-size third-generation Range Rover, the car that makes every other entry on this list look careful and sensible. Few vehicles on earth can empty a bank account quite like a used Range Rover bought by someone who only looked at the purchase price. Let us be clear, when it works, this is one of the finest luxury machines ever built. Commanding, comfortable, unstoppable off-road, dripping with status, that is exactly why people fall for it. They see a car that cost the thick end of 60 or 70,000 pounds when new, now sat there for a tiny fraction of that, and they think they have outsmarted the world. They have not. They have just agreed to inherit the running costs. Start with the Air suspension. Same story as the Discovery, only on a heavier, posher car. It leaks, it fails, it flashes up suspension inactive, and putting it right is never cheap. Then the electrics, which are famously moody, flickering lights, dodgy modules, fuel gauges that lie, starting faults, a long menu of gremlins that get worse with age and neglect. Older examples have earned a reliability reputation right down at the bottom of the pile. Now add the running costs. The early cars carried a thirsty BMW V8. Later ones got Jaguar 5.8 engines and a TD V8 diesel, and all of them are heavy on fuel, heavy on brakes, and heavy on parts because this was a premium vehicle, and premium parts cost premium money. Brakes that need doing far too often. Suspension bushes. Compressors. The list never really ends. So the maths is savage. A car that cost a fortune new and lost most of its value in a few short years, handed down to a buyer who pays little to get in and then bleeds money to stay in. Mechanics see them coming. Insurance is not kind, and the moment you think you are on top of it, another warning light glows. The L3 22 Range Rover is the final boss of British money pits. Magnificent to be seen in, financially terrifying to actually own. Buy one only if you have a deep wallet, a good specialist on speed dial, and a strong sense of humor. So there you have it. 10 British cars that look like class on the forecourt and behave like a slow puncture in your savings. From the badge-engineered Jaguars to the orphaned Rovers, from a 30-grand Toyota in a posh frock to the mighty Money Pit Range Rover, these are the motors that prove a good badge and a low price can hide a very expensive problem. A car should carry you home with a smile, not leave you on the hard shoulder doing sums in your head. Hit that subscribe button so you do not miss the next one, and have a look at the video on screen now. Thanks for watching, and drive safe out there.